Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. I am very pleased to be joined by Deputy Premier Gord Wyant, our Minister of Education, also our Minister responsible for Sask Builds, to announce a substantial investment in building a strong Saskatchewan. And I'm very pleased to make an announcement that will further stimulate our economy as we begin to recover from the economics of the COVID-19 pandemic. But before I do that, I will provide a very brief update on today's COVID-19 case numbers, and we'll hear briefly from Dr. Shahab, who is joining us by telephone here today. Today we have 25 new cases, bringing our provincial total to 512. 24 of those new cases are in the far north, in La Loche and the surrounding area. And the outbreak in the far north continues to be very serious for this province. And we continue to monitor the situation to ensure that the necessary supports are in place to provide residents in the area to not only self-isolate but also to physical distance. Now I'll just ask Dr. Shahab, if you'd like, for an update in a little bit more detail on today's COVID-19 numbers. Dr. Shahab?
Thank you, Premier. So I will just go over the numbers in a bit more detail. So as the Premier said, we have 25 new confirmed cases, out of which 24 are in the far north in the La Loche area and one in the Saskatchewan region. And if you look at, we have updated the information on the website, and if you go to our information on the website, you will appreciate that while obviously the outbreak in La Loche and area is very concerning, when we look at the table showing active cases, we can see that apart from the far north and the north, which is impacted due to the Lloydminster outbreak, things are pretty quiet in the rest of Saskatchewan, which enables us to proceed with the reopening Saskatchewan plan. For the rest of the province, there'll be a review of the situation in Lloydminster end of this week and early next week, but that outbreak seems to be at this point contained. But of course, we expect to see, with very active case finding, ongoing cases that are mostly close contacts for initial cases that are being found through active contact tracing and testing, which is a good thing. While the case numbers are alarming, they are being generated through very active case finding, which allows cases, even if they're mildly symptomatic, to be effectively isolated in a way to limit the outbreak from spreading further. Furthermore, if we look at the age ranges of the cases, we are now seeing an increase in the 20 to 40 age group, which again is partly due to the transmission in mostly younger age groups in the La Loche area. And most of the cases so far have been mild, with effective isolation in the home setting. And finally, if we look at the number of tests ordered, we have now 1326 tests that have been done in the far north. So testing continues to be done at a high level, and that is resulting in increased case finding. And testing continues in the rest of the province as well for all people who have even mild symptoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shahab, for all you do for the province. Across Saskatchewan, we must continue to be vigilant in observing physical distancing practices. We've seen firsthand, time and time again, that these practices work. So now in today's announcement, for the past several weeks across this country, we have been paying people to stay at home. Governments of all levels have been paying businesses to stay closed. And I understand why we had to do that, and it was the right thing to do. But moving forward as a society, we need to get back to paying people to go to work. We need to invest in businesses to operate and to build. That's how our economy is going to recover. That's how we are going to create new jobs and return to our existing jobs. And this is how we will, and that is the plan that we are announcing here today. Today we are announcing a plan to build a strong Saskatchewan, a plan that is an early but major step in Saskatchewan's economic recovery in the months and the years ahead. Over the next 2 years, our government will invest $7.5 billion in schools, hospitals, highways, in Crown utility projects, in municipal infrastructure, and a number of other important capital projects designed to build a strong province of Saskatchewan. That is a $2 billion increase over 2 years, a $2 billion economic booster shot over and above the $5.5 billion our government had already planned to invest in capital projects over the coming 2 years. The $2 billion stimulus injection will balance the need for smaller, short-term projects to jumpstart our economic activity and to get people back to work quickly, with longer-term, large-scale projects that leverage multiple sectors over the course of the next couple of years. This capital injection includes new capital funding of over $300 million for highway projects, $200 additional million for healthcare infrastructure, and over $135 million for education infrastructure. Specifically, the $2 billion capital injection to build a strong Saskatchewan will be allocated as follows: $1.37 billion for large infrastructure projects, including over $100 million for new healthcare infrastructure, and over $110 million for new education infrastructure, with additional allocations that will be announced in the dates ahead. Sask Builds will provide oversight as well as the project management and procurement expertise. The design, the engineering, the architecture, construction, and project management costs are included in this total, and with the goal of ensuring projects are shovel-ready not only this year but into next year. And the $2 billion capital injection includes an additional investment of $300 million in highways projects, focusing on thin membrane surface upgrades and passing lanes, including $46 million that will be dedicated for upgrades to municipal roads and airports. The $2 billion capital injection includes $181 million for renewal projects to reduce the deferred maintenance on provincial and third-party assets. This includes renewal project funding such as an additional $100 million for healthcare infrastructure, and about $26 million in renewal infrastructure in education, with the remainder addressing priority projects in a number of other ministries across government and agencies. And lastly, the $2 billion capital injection includes a $150 million investment in a renewed Municipal Economic Enhancement Program, or the MEEP program, to support infrastructure projects in communities right across this province. And I would note that this $2 billion is in addition to the $2.7 billion Crown and executive government capital investment that was already announced in this year's estimates, and over and above the $2.8 billion that we are planning to invest in the next fiscal year, bringing our total investment in infrastructure to $7.5 billion over 2 years. Our estimates announced on March 18th by our Minister of Finance, the Honourable Donna Harpower, included a number of very important infrastructure projects that included 10 major school projects, including ones in Regina, in Saskatoon, in Carrot River, in Yorkton, in North Battleford, and in Wilcox. It included a new Prince Albert Victoria Hospital, as well as continuing towards the construction of a new hospital in the community of Weyburn, a new long-term care facility in Meadow Lake, and it included a new CT scan in Melfort. It included 1,000 kilometers of highway improvements and 24 new sets of passing lanes, as well as significant investment and safety improvements at highway intersections throughout the province. Very importantly, much of this funding will have a significant impact in assisting municipalities with priority infrastructure projects, boosting our construction industry and creating jobs right across Saskatchewan. This investment over the course of the next 2 years includes more than $320 million that will be provided for municipal infrastructure, starting with the $150 million in the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program, or the renewal of the MEEP funding, the $130 million invested in the Canada Infrastructure Program, or the ICIP program, and the $46 million through highways that is targeted to municipal roads and airports. Again, this investment is in addition to various municipal transfers that were highlighted in the estimates this spring, and in addition to municipal revenue sharing. Over the last several weeks, construction, including maintenance and repair, has been operating as an allowable business service by the government of Saskatchewan in the province of Saskatchewan. And to ensure the safety of workers and communities, work sites will continue to be required to follow all physical distancing measures and restrictions that remain in place through the 5 phases of the province's Reopen Saskatchewan plan. And we are thankful for our Saskatchewan construction industry. We are very grateful for the strong Saskatchewan construction industry that we have here. Through this funding, our construction companies and our construction workers will have the opportunity to continue to build a stronger Saskatchewan. And in turn, we will create good-paying jobs while they do it. In fact, based on Statistics Canada data, projects funded through this investment announced today are expected to support approximately 10,000 jobs. And the increased investment in infrastructure funding supports the province's growth plan commitment to build strong communities by investing $30 billion in infrastructure over the course of the next decade. Because we know as we recover from COVID-19, a strong Saskatchewan, a strong and growing Saskatchewan, is more important now than ever. This $2 billion capital injection increases our total investment to $7.5 billion over 2 years. This is a major step in building stronger communities and building a stronger province. I'll now ask our Deputy Premier, Gord Wyant, to say a few words with respect to Sask Build's initiatives.
Well, thanks very much, Premier. Well, as the Premier noted, we want to help Saskatchewan industry and companies and workers get back to work. And we know that investing in infrastructure is one of the best ways to do that. It's certainly going to be one of the keys to our economic recovery. Sask Build's priority in this stimulus plan is to ensure that local jobs are preserved or created and that local sectors are supported. That work will be led by Priority Saskatchewan, who has already achieved a great deal of success in this area. It's something we're very proud of the accomplishments that they've had. In fact, after establishing the government's single procurement service last year, more than 92% of all contracts were awarded to Saskatchewan companies, and we want to build on that through this investment. There are a number of tools available to Sask Builds to ensure stimulus products benefit Saskatchewan sectors through sector engagement and through planning. We want to maximize the benefits of Saskatchewan people and communities, and I want to assure our industry and our businesses that as much as possible, the work will be performed by Saskatchewan workers as we reopen Saskatchewan. We know that building a strong Saskatchewan means building on the strengths of Saskatchewan workers, and that's precisely the goal of this plan. Thanks, Premier.